What's up, everybody? Welcome to Discourse and Chill. I'm Ian.
And I'm your girl, Reese. Today's topic came out of another conversation that I had with the guy. He was telling me about how he was looking for peace and finding someone to be his peace. And I had to interject and, go on my whole spiel about never wanting to be a person's peace again and only wanting to be and have freedom with their relationships. So I kind of wanted to have that conversation today, get a breakdown on my opinion of it. I'm not trying to change anybody's opinion. All you be peace people, continue to be peace if that's what you want to be. But just hear me out real quick. So I'm gonna kickstart with you, Ian, because at one point in time you were a be peace person. So let's talk about what peace was or maybe still is for you.
Yeah, I think in previous relationships, I have wanted to find somebody who, like, when we came together, like, was just my calm and my peace. Like, I felt that I was always somebody who worked hard, who was always chasing a dream, was always trying to build something, and wanted
Yeah.
to, at the end of a long day, just find somebody to fall into and just lay on their lap and just let it be my peace for the evening, And also, even in conflict, like, not just in those like easy times, but also in those moments where it's hard, to be able to have adult conversations in a way that are productive and not combative and not just trying to prove a point, but just a very calm way to kind of engage, grow together, and connect. And to me, that was just peace. It was just different than what I was experiencing. It was different than the craziness that's out in the world. It was just calm and peace is what I wanted. um,
Yeah.
so yeah, and then you and I had that conversation, and I was very much surprised and very much just baffled when I really thought through it about, like, the importance of
Yeah.
freedom. So tell the people
Yeah.
about your idea of freedom.
So, well, first off, peace is defined as like a state of tranquility or quiet. It's like harmony within personal relationships. It's the freedom from being disquieted. Like the verb version of that, I think it says to be, to become, or like keep silent or quiet. To keep silent or quiet. That's peace. Okay. But then freedom is the absence of the necessity of coercion, of constraints in choice or action. It's unrestricted,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you think about peace, peace sounds good under condition.
Mm-hmm.
Like in order for me to have peace, you have to do this. Peace is
Mm-hmm.
conditional, and there is no condition in freedom. There's the absence of the necessity of the coercion of like any constraints of choice or actions. So when somebody says, I'm looking for somebody to be my peace, that means that they are at war, and somebody else has to bring them peace. Peace is not mine to give to
Mm-hmm.
you. Your peace is
Mm-hmm.
yours. It's not for me to find you peace or for me to give you peace. Because if I control your peace, then I control you. Basically, if I have control over your peace, if my actions make you at peace, that means I can control you. So I can do things to keep you peaceful, and I can do things to rile you up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Peace is always conditional. So I have been my peace person, come home, oh, it's soft, it's light here, you can land here. I can still be soft and allow you to land in freedom
Mm-hmm.
as well. So I'll kind of go over the difference between the two. For me, peace is conditional.
Mm-hmm.
Peace will have you disrespected. Peace will have you silenced, because in order to keep the peace, I got to be quiet. To have your peace as you need it, parts of me have to be silenced, and that's not conducive to healthy relationships.
Facts.
So when people say I'm looking for my peace, then again it's like, in order for me to be peaceful, you have to do this. Can you do this for me to be peaceful? My peace is mine, your peace is yours. I can't give you your peace, and you can't give me mine, because then you control how I get and receive peace. Does that
Facts.
make
Yeah,
sense?
absolutely, it makes sense. I think,
Okay.
yeah, like, when we had the conversation about it before, it was definitely eye opening to think about the definition of peace in that way, or just to even be fully aware of the definition of peace. And it does sound very conditional. You know, it does sound very much
Yes.
uh, more controlling than I would have thought. And
Yeah.
hearing the definition of freedom and even hearing how you explain freedom, I definitely
Mhm.
was, I don't know, I want that. That sounds more conducive to the thing that I was thinking about, is definitely like the freedom within someone. And I think even we talked about in our last episode, like the definition of love, I think
Mhm.
the freedom can come from
Yeah.
that acceptance that the other person has for you and you
Mhm.
have for them. Like when you
Yes.
completely accept somebody, you feel free to be your whole self. They feel free to be your whole self. And I think that
Right.
is super important and conducive to like just building a really strong and beautiful relationship.
Right. I say,
Mm-hmm.
once you find that peace within, then you open yourself up for freedom for yourself and for others. And then people say,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, well, you giving people freedom, then that freedom will get you hurt." No, freedom won't get you hurt when you realize that freedom is rooted in responsibility. And that's where people get things misconstrued. So, again, peace is conditional. Freedom is rooted in responsibility. What do you mean by that, Sharice? Well, whenever you decide that you are going to partner with someone, you all have come to like a mutual agreement of what your relationship looks like. Your actions have to represent the agreement. You want to hang out with your friends, cool. You meet somebody in the club, you want to just have casual conversation, fine. People are like, oh, he can't go out and talk to nobody else, he can only talk to me. Like, that's my peace. That's not peaceful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's conditional. I was talking to somebody, I think I might have said the last episode, talking to somebody before about her kind of losing interest in a guy because he was popular. He like commanded the room. Everybody that he talks to, oh, hey, we'll
Mm-hmm.
call him John. Hey John, there goes John. Hey John. Everybody knew John, and John was able to converse with the entire room because he is one, a people person.
Mm-hmm.
Two, within a relationship, he's responsible to the person that he committed to. This is hypothetical. I don't know if John is in a relationship or not, but he's able to converse with them. He has the freedom to talk to everybody in the room, but doing so responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like, if you come to an agreement that we are together, and at the end of the day, your actions won't hurt my feelings or my emotions. My actions won't hurt your feelings and your emotions, but you are free to be your whole self,
Mm-hmm.
with no restrictions. Like, I think people have to realize, again, peace is conditional, but freedom is rooted in responsibility, and your actions have to be responsible to the person that you are committed to.
Absolutely. And I like what you said there when you said that when you agree on the relationship that you two
Mhm.
want to have,
Yeah.
we need to do this more, first of all, because
Mhm.
I know that in my past relationships, I have asked about this
Mhm.
question. I have asked, what kind of relationship do you want to be in with me? And
Yeah.
that question has been answered with like big eyes, mouth wide open. Like nobody has ever asked me that before. So you out here like going into relationships without setting expectations, without aligning goals, without being able to know exactly what this other person needs for love or what it means to cheat with this person, because there's this assumption that everybody
Right.
knows the expectation, you know. And I think it's
Right.
so important to be able to establish those boundaries initially and be able to establish
Mhm.
exactly how you want to show up for that person and how you want that person to show up for you. uh, yeah, I think
Right.
that what makes a beautiful relationship. But then also agreeing that peace can be found within yourself and within the freedom that you
Mhm.
want to provide this relationship, you know? And I think that's something that I definitely wasn't thinking about because I was always
Mhm.
at war with the world, you know, trying to survive, like doing everything. And I had
Yeah.
peace within myself, and I wanted somebody else to be my peace as well in a relationship. But if they're not at peace, they will never be your peace, and they will never know how to
Exactly.
like handle you or take care of you in your peace. So
Yeah.
it's like freedom is so important in that way. And I think that's what really kind of opened my mind and my eyes to it. And I was just very much like, wow, this, I need to find that.
I mean, and you also think about it too, like, in relationships, you don't want to be with that person all the time, 24/7, 365.
Not,
There are times where you want to hang out with your boys, you want to hang out with your girls. There
yeah.
are times where your boys and her girls can get together, you all have like a group outing, but sometimes you just need like, I need a girls' day.
Hmm.
Um and so sorry, my phone. I forgot to put on do not disturb. um but there's sometimes that in the relationship you want to hang out, singularly,
Hmm.
and you have to give your person, the space and grace and freedom to do that,
Hmm.
but your person has to know that when I'm away from you, I am responsible for how my actions will make you feel, you know
Hmm.
and that's where people have to like come together and come to terms in what this looks like for us,
Hmm.
um freedom is something that people have to grow into.
Hmm.
At one time I was like, oh, I'm gonna be his piece, whatever he needs, I'm
Hmm.
gonna do that. But then, like, I lost pieces of myself. I
Hmm.
silenced pieces of myself. Oh, I can't speak up in this because, like, then he's gonna be upset or he's not gonna be at peace. I don't
Hmm.
want to disrupt the peace. Peace gets you disrespected intentionally and unintentionally,
Hmm. Absolutely.
and again, all you BP people, I promise I am not trying to change your perspective, your mind. If you being somebody's piece works for you and that's how your relationship is shaped, that is great. I don't want to be like, oh, nobody got peace anymore. I am not saying that at all. I'm just saying, for me and
Yeah.
mine, we need to have the freedom to be our whole selves,
Hmm.
good, bad, and different.
Hmm.
Some days are good days, some days are bad days. If we're together, I have the freedom to let my bad days be known. And you have the freedom to choose if you want to continue to love me,
Hmm.
because love is a choice. We talked about that last
Yeah.
episode. So, there's definitely things within freedom that require discussions and conversations and being adult about it.
Hmm.
Peace just allows you to, put up this facade and like hold it
Yeah.
in. Freedom requires conversation. Peace forces you to be
Yeah.
silent.
Absolutely. I think about it too when I think about this is a stretch for analogy, but we always talk about we live in the land of the free, right? Like in America, we are the land of the free. And so I'm
Yeah.
going to talk about this from the perspective of the concept of that more so than the execution, right? So the concept of
Okay.
freedom in America is that we have these abilities to make these choices and live our lives in the way that we choose. Obviously, there's
Right.
laws and things like that that kind of help protect society. And
Hmm.
but this freedom has a cost, right? Like we have a military
Yeah.
presence, we have laws, we have a judicial system, we have a process to handle things that disrupt the peace within the freedom that we are all afforded, right? And so I think about that in a
Right.
relationship too. It's like though we have this freedom, we also have these parameters, we have these expectations, we have
Hmm.
this ability
Hmm.
to be at peace with ourselves and each other, and also when the peace is disrupted, we have to have that accountability within each other and that responsibility towards the other person that we are going to take care of those feelings, we're going to take care of that conversation, and we're going to hold those things close so we can still live within our freedom that we want. And when I thought about it in that way, it's like it makes sense that like there's responsibility within freedom. In every context or idea of freedom, there is that responsibility that you have to that other person to respect their expectations, to respect their peace, to respect their ability to be free with you, whether that be next to you or while they're out in public or living their life in the way that they choose. And I think that is a conversation, and it's a bigger conversation that like it's not going to take a day for y'all to sort out. That's an ongoing conversation as things come
Right.
up, as things evolve. That's something that uh in a relationship you continue to build on, and I don't think that I've ever taken the time or put in the effort to do that in relationships in the past. Do you think You can you
Yeah.
say that, like, since you've come up with this idea of freedom, have you, like, looking back, have you put in that time and the effort to kind of build that freedom into your relationships in the past?
So, past relationships, I would say no,
Mm-hmm.
because I was so busy trying to be the
Mm-hmm.
peace that I didn't have freedom to grow and express
Absolutely.
properly.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom will allow you to grow and evolve. Because you aren't the same person today that you were yesterday.
Facts.
Life teaches you things, and as you're learning the lessons of life, you evolve and you pivot. So freedom allows you that. Peace doesn't always allow you that,
Mm-hmm.
So I was so busy trying to ensure that, like, oh, this person is, gonna come home and I'm gonna be the best one for them,
Yeah.
and like however they want it, that's what I'm gonna deliver,
Mm-hmm.
but and then doing that, I stunted growth on pieces of
Mm-hmm.
myself. Part of it had to do with, like, okay, I gotta make sure I do this because I had insecurities that centered around my cancer and like not feeling whole and
Mm-hmm.
complete. So I was like, well, this person's with me even though I went through that, and they know my situation, so like, they're choosing me, so I need to make sure that I hold on to them
Mm-hmm.
by being peaceful. The whole time I'm holding on to somebody peaceful, they sleeping with every Jane, Tamika, Shaniqua, like, you know, so it's like, I'm trying to be peaceful and make the house a home,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, like, this person wasn't even respecting the
Yeah.
home. So, make that make sense. So yeah, going forward, I always have the conversation. Anytime a man tells me he's looking for
Mm-hmm.
peace, my response is, that's great for you, but I don't ever want to be a man's peace
Mm-hmm.
again. And I have the whole peace freedom conversation. And then, like, oh, that perspective is different. I've never looked at it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course you haven't. Because you've been so busy having women give you peace that you didn't realize that, things weren't as peaceful for them as well. And also, your peace isn't mine. I can't give you peace.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find peace for yourself. Because again, if I give you peace, I'm controlling when you can and cannot have peace. That's abusive.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
It can
that's
be. It
abusive.
can be. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but it definitely has the potential to be. And I think too, like, guys who pursue peace, like, it comes from a space of, like I was saying, like, especially as a black man, there are so many ways that we are at war with the world, and so many ways we want something or someone to come home to and just feel at ease, because out here being hyper vigilant to like live through a day in public and also show up at work in a way that's beneficial to potentially getting like a raise or promotion, and having particular expectations that we're living through or trying to navigate. I think that's where it comes from. It's like, I am doing everything I can do to survive out here, financially, physically, spiritually. I just wanted to come home to something like peaceful, like, I
Right.
hear it and I
And
understand it, and there's that opportunity that you can take that peace to another level and cultivate freedom for yourself, so you can find that peace in
right.
that freedom.
Right. Now, all those things
Mm-hmm.
that you said, the obstacles outside in the war that you're going through as a black man,
Mm-hmm.
add that to the black woman, right? And then
Yeah,
on top of all the
absolutely.
things that you go through as a black man, that the black woman is going through, now she also has to come home, take care of the household, take care of the kids, make sure he's at peace. You know what I'm saying? So it's like she
Yeah.
needs somewhere to land as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, for me, I always want to be a safe space, a soft place. Like I always say, like, after a hard day, I know what you're going through, black man. You know what I'm saying? I want you to be able to land here
Mm-hmm.
freely. I want you to be open with your emotions, open with how you're feeling, good days and bad days. I don't want my man to feel like he can't come home and talk to me about his bad day,
Mm-hmm. For sure.
or he can't come home and just relax. Like, I want you to be able to do all of that, but I want to also be able to do that as well,
Facts.
and not feel like, well, I have to do this in order for him to be able to relax, and I can't do what I need to do as well in order for me to relax after going out here fighting the world all
Mm-hmm.
day too.
Yeah.
So that's where, for me, for I keep saying for me because I'm not trying to make anybody believe what I
Mm-hmm.
believe, but for me, it has to be some reciprocity and definitely freedom within the
Yeah.
relationships.
Abs-
Again, freedom is rooted in
mm-hmm.
responsibility.
And I think too that is something that is not necessarily communicated. I'm not saying for you
Mhm.
particularly, but just giving me that perspective in that moment, is that like that is something that I've always said to potential partners, but I don't know that that has ever been
Mhm.
said to me, right? Like when I think through it, like
Yeah.
how many people have told me, like, "Hey, I want you to be my piece too," you know?
Right.
Um,
Because we don't do that as women.
yeah, and maybe also, I think the other things within that, there are other things that women prioritize too, right? Like
Mhm.
protection and providing, you know? And so
Yeah.
I think sometimes they can find peace in those instances where you feel a little
Mhm.
more peaceful if you know that you're being respected when your man is not near you. You feel protected within his arms. You
Mhm.
feel like he's providing like you whatever it is that you ask to be provided to you. So I wonder if
Right.
in that request, is that where they find, or if, is that where a woman could potentially find peace in those things? Um, I don't know, just something like just throwing it around in my brain, you know? Because
Right.
I know specifically it's a like it's a man. It seems to me to be like a more male centric request, if I
Mhm.
put it like that, more so than like women saying, "Hey, I want you to be my piece." I feel like women are saying, "Hey, I want you to be
Right.
my protector and provider," you know?
Yeah, and I get that. I think
Hmm.
societal norms make us
Hmm.
feel like the man is supposed to, protect and provide,
Hmm.
and the woman is supposed to be the housekeeper and the cook, the clean, whatever. So it's
Yeah.
like once we stick to like what the norms are,
Hmm.
people kind of get stuck in that and then not go outside of that. So yes, men are supposed to protect and provide. Do I feel peace when I know that he's protecting and he's providing for me? Of course.
Hmm.
But in that peace, can I freely say what I want?
Yeah.
If you look back to like our grandma and great grandma days, like they didn't really speak up because they didn't have the freedom to do that. If I speak up against this man who is can be the only breadwinner,
Hmm.
I can't get a loan. I can't buy a car. Like for years up until like what the 70s,
Yeah.
late 60s, early 70s, were women allowed to, get loans for themselves, buy a house. Like they wouldn't even let a woman sign a mortgage without a husband. So like there were times where women had to be peaceful,
Yeah.
but they didn't have the freedom.
Yeah.
You know, and
Absolutely.
then I mean, if we look on times like that, then that shows, again, like those norms and those restrictions that are put on you because of
Yeah.
peace. Peace is restrictive. Even if you look at wartime, two countries can be at peace, but as soon as one country do something the other country don't like, they're at war.
Hmm. Yeah.
So even if you think of that when it comes down to countries and alliances, peace is conditional,
Yeah.
has always been conditional.
Absolutely. And I think too, like the bigger conversation now that we're having is like
Mhm.
wanting for like me wanting a woman to be my piece is also like me upholding patriarchy, right? And it's misogynistic a little
Okay.
bit or a lot of it
Mhm.
because
Yeah. Mhm.
like if I think about it in the context of what you're saying, right? Like there's this desire for
Right.
me to go out and survive the world and then come home and to have like this peacefulness at home, you know?
Right.
And that
Right.
requires, it doesn't require me to be the piece of the person that I'm with. It requires them to be my piece.
Mhm.
And so like I'm like upholding a patriarchy system that has been around for way too long, essentially, you know? And
Forever.
so I think
Forever. Yeah.
that forever, yeah. So I think even in like even in this conversation, even like thinking through it and like you providing me your perspective of things, it's like, well, damn, like I've been asking for something that I don't know that I've been providing in the same way, you know,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
it has never
Yeah.
been asked of me in that way, or they're like that has never been the expectation that has been placed on me, and it
Right.
absolutely is because of societal norms. You know, it absolutely is because like the way I protect is has been like I think I've gotten I guess feedback on like how people want me to protect, how people want me to provide. Um, and
Hmm.
that just kind of upholds kind of like gender roles and stereotypes and the patriarchy in this like perpetual system of us trying to have this like old school relationship that we keep telling ourselves that we want something different, you know? And so I think freedom
Yeah.
is the way to move that needle forward, right? Is the way to ensure reciprocity. It's a way to ensure both
Mm-hmm.
people are taken care of in that space and both people are able to
Mm-hmm.
find peace within the freedom that you create within the relationship.
Right, right. And
Mhm.
I am not trying to change, how people view
Now we trying to change
relationships.
at this
If
point.
you are
We trying to we trying to move the
well,
needle. That's what we doing.
I'm not with that, but like I
Mhm.
don't want people to interpret me saying like women don't be soft and speak your mind,
Yeah.
girl. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
because I said I want to lean more into my feminine. I want to be able to like come home and be able to unpack and be soft, because
Mhm.
I'm always in control. I'm in control all day at work. Everything that I do, I'm in control.
Mhm.
And I want to come home and I have to control things all the time. I want to be able to land softly and be able to rely on somebody else as well. I want somebody to be able to come home and land softly, and be able to open up with emotions and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So I'm not trying to say like, men don't be men, women don't be women. But what I'm trying to say is people be considerate
Mhm.
overall,
Yeah.
'cause we're both out here, you know, fighting with the world every
Yeah.
day, especially now with women in the workforce and things that we have to do. We work just as hard as men do, but then we come home and there's an expectation for us to do more at the house. Like
Yeah.
you get to come home and sit down.
Yeah.
I don't get to come home and sit down, because you hungry. You like clothes need washing. If there's kids in the house, kids need to be taken care of. So sometimes, fellas, you can come home and cook a meal, or you can come home and do homework. It just has to be a two sided
Yeah.
thing.
There has to be reciprocity.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and again for me, I don't ever want to be peace anymore. I want you to have the peace within yourself, and then I help encourage you to maintain that peace,
Yeah.
not me be in control of if you are peaceful or at peace.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think this conversation is really like tailored around like you telling people what to do. I think we're informing a thought, right? Like we're trying to like plant a
Yeah.
seed that's going to grow into something because that's what you did to me, right? Like when we were having that conversation, it was like a seed and it's just something that I have been thinking through and like within this conversation, it has
Mhm.
grown to my understanding that like the
Yeah.
request for peace is very misogynistic. It just upholds the patriarchy in a way that doesn't allow you to also come home and find that peace within like the
Right.
daily chores that exist. Eh, it's 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 like a nicer way of saying like, hey, when I come home, I don't want to do anything and I want to lay down. Like that's never how
Yeah.
I yeah, that's never how I believed it to be. But like as we're talking
Right.
about it, I see how it can be perceived in that way. It could definitely be
Mhm.
like interpreted in a way of like, hey, like when I get home, like you just need to like have everything done or you need to have everything taken care of and I need to come home and do nothing. Like
Right.
I, I'm not in that
Right.
way. Like I cook and do laundry, so like that has never been the thing. I think for
Yeah.
me, the pieces always wanted to come from like the interaction and like the connection you have with the
Mhm.
partner, and not necessarily the chores.
Right.
But I think
Right.
it's important to understand how impactful freedom can be in the context that we're discussing it, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
it can give permission to so many things and lend itself to like allowing two people to exist in a way that's beneficial for both of them and not necessarily just one of them. Hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I always say that you can always, always find peace within freedom, but you cannot
Hmm.
always find freedom within peace. And
Yeah.
I think that's where my perspective has led me again,
Hmm.
me.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking for somebody who also that we both have freedom. Because just like men don't want to come home and argue or be nagged at, women don't want to come home and argue or have to nag. Like it's
Hmm.
exhausting. So just being able to, again, allow somebody to be free to be who they are
Hmm.
responsibly, I think
Yeah.
plays a big part in relationships and like the success of that relationship. People have
Mhm.
to be forthcoming and be honest with themselves and their partner. This is what I want. This is who I am. And, can you meet me where I am? Is who
Mhm.
I am conducive to who you are? And can we walk this path together, with some kind of like agreement or like commitment that we both, say, yes, this is what we're gonna do?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I hear so many times. I remember when I lived in North Carolina, my neighbor, he would always tell me not to get married, and he would always say that in context. He's like, you know, I thought I was in one situation, and I realize I'm in a totally different situation now. And
Yep. Hmm.
I feel that on both sides, expectations probably weren't set, and
Hmm.
now, like, instead of succumbing, they're at war with each other, trying to ensure
Yeah.
that the other one doesn't get a leg up on anything. uh,
Yeah.
and I think expectations are super important. I think uh, one of the biggest kind of narratives I hear around like relationships is just, oh, that they're not who they said they were. And it it's interesting to me because I'm somebody who, we don't go together until I know you. Like, it's gonna be a minute. Like,
Not go together. We're gonna
yeah,
stay together.
we'll go together until I know you. Like,
Okay, junior high. Like, okay.
and so I don't think I think I've been in that situation maybe once or twice, like in my younger years.
Mhm.
But like for the most part, like I know who I'm getting involved with. Like I'm aware of
Yeah.
the the positives, the shortcomings, the things I have to like
Mhm.
compromise on. Like I want to be aware of all that stuff. Are there things that pop up because of like traumas or like things that happen?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But there are
Mhm.
behaviors that are like toxic that have existed from the beginning that I see and I just like, oh, I'm not gonna
Right.
worry about this. It'll be fine. Like I don't do that. Like I
Right.
don't play with that.
Right.
I first thing I'm be like, look, I notice this behavior. Like, what are the things that you're doing to like either do better, or do we need to talk about it, or we need to have a conversation? You want to
Right.
like, we can talk about going to therapy. Hell, I'll go with you. Like, we can
Mhm.
navigate this together. But we ain't gonna do nothing about it and then keep going. Like we gonna we gonna
Right.
address this thing. Um,
Yeah.
and so I think being able to set those expectations, being able to have those conversations, like has been the
Mhm.
freedom that I've had, and like,
Mhm.
but not in the same way of like what I've requested from people, because I've requested peace still. And so I think just
Right. Right.
thinking through this, I've had like so many thoughts and like so many ways that like, man, I wonder if this would have been different if I would have asked for this in the beginning,
Mhm.
rather than asking for peace. Like, but that's a whole other conversation for another episode of
Another
Discourse and Chill.
episode. Look at you seeing how you need me to help you with perspective. A
I mean, it's a
mess.
hell of a
But no.
perspective. It's a
But
hell
yeah,
of a perspective.
it's yeah, and it comes from this big grown age that I am. It comes with a lot of like life lessons, and there was a lot of like trial and error, to get me to I just want freedom.
Hmm.
I think that came with life, and situations, and situationships, like it kind of grew into like what I know I don't want
Hmm.
and what I do want. And yeah, just making sure that I am adult in
Hmm.
that. That people say communication is the best thing, or communication is key. And being able to communicate how I feel, my expectations, what I want, and then you do the same in return, how you feel, your expectations, what you want, coming to some common ground. If as adults we figure that we can't come to a common ground, then that's all well and good too. I wish you well on your journey.
Hmm.
part of the problem is people say they want peace because they want to be in control of like how somebody reacts to like what they're doing. That you being greedy, like stop being greedy. If that person cannot align with what you want, even though you may want them, it's not for you. Stop sipping out of other people's cup. It's not your cup. You depleting people's cup, and it's not your cup. You can't sip out of every cup because then you're leaving somebody with less than what they deserve in a full relationship.
Mhm.
Stop being greedy. That cup ain't your cup.
Yeah, yeah, it ain't. It's like hearing you say that. I remember like meeting somebody. I think I told you about this. Like meeting somebody, and then within the first couple of dates, you just kind of we realized that we didn't really align on things, and
Yeah.
like I was like, cool. Like I really enjoyed getting to know you. And if
Mhm.
you'd like to be friends, maybe that's something we could do because but it doesn't seem like we align in
Right.
relationships. And she was so like,
Mhm.
but I like you and I don't care. And I was like, I don't understand that. Like, you know that I can't
Yeah.
accommodate the things that you need. I've like been very
Right.
vocal about it, like, hey, I can't do this. I appreciate that you want it
Yeah.
and I respect that you want it and you should go out and find somebody who can give it to you, but it's not me. And
Right.
in that moment there
Right.
was the response was let's do it anyway. And I think so many people
Yeah.
behave in that way that it is
Mhm.
not conducive to good relationships. Like when you see the thing that is a deal breaker for
Right.
you, it's okay to walk away. It is fine. There is somebody else who will align with your needs, wants, desires, preferences. There is. Like you
Yeah.
can make concessions on
Yeah.
small things, but not on things that are like you say are important to you. Because then I question, is this really important to you if you're not willing to like walk away from this
Right.
moment, you know?
Right. And I think part of that too, I've said to you plenty of times, people are so okay with having a piece of something than having the whole thing. People need to be able to sit with themselves. It's okay to be alone. And a
Hmm.
lot of people don't like themselves. That's why they don't want to be
That
alone.
part.
Because if you have to sit with yourself, what I'm saying, figure out who you are, that's work that a lot of people don't want to do, And I've also said, you looking for peace because that's the love that you have elevated to. You've elevated to peace. But once you elevate to freedom, like there's no I just need somebody my peace. You haven't elevated fully within yourself. You still got to figure out who you are when you are searching for quote unquote peace. And my definition of freedom might be somebody's definition of peace. So again, if all you be peace people, if if what I'm explaining as freedom for you is peace, then amen, hallelujah. I just don't want to, I just need people to realize that your peace is not somebody else's
Mm.
responsibility. Your peace is yours. That's why they say it's your peace. It's not our peace, it's your peace.
Hmm.
When you find your peace and I find my peace, then we will have our peace collectively. But your peace is yours.
Yeah.
Just like they say, my happiness is mine and my joy is mine. I can't have somebody else responsible for my happiness. You also can't have somebody responsible for your peace.
Hmm.
Like you have to think of it in that
Yeah.
term. So what's yours is yours, and you have to obtain it for
Hmm.
yourself.
I agree 100%. I think you said something very, very like impactful and important when you said that some people don't like themselves, so that's why they don't want to like be by themselves. And that's so true. Like
Yeah,
I used to
yeah,
be that person. I used to be somebody who didn't want to sit with my own thoughts when I was younger. Like I needed to go
yeah.
do something and like be
Mhm.
entertained, be busied, be like around somebody else
Yes,
because I didn't want to sit and identify and like really address the man in the mirror. And it wasn't until I did
yeah,
that that I really found a new level of acceptance and self love for myself. And that
mhm,
self love and acceptance allowed me to give more love and acceptance to others. And it comes
yeah,
from spending time with myself, being honest with
mhm,
myself, being completely transparent with myself. So when I fuck up, I look, you fucked up. Like that's the
yeah,
first step. You ain't
yeah,
gotta tell nobody else. But if you start there,
Yeah.
if you start
Right.
there, it will help you tell
Right.
everybody. Like if I tell myself I fucked up, it's easy to tell Reese. Hell, like looking myself in the
Right.
mirror is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, it
It
is.
is.
It definitely
So
is.
I think that's super
Yep.
important to address that. Like you
Mhm.
you can't have any peace or any freedom without the relationship with yourself being like on point.
Solid.
It it has to
Yep.
be solid. It's got to be
Yep.
no cap all the time. It's got to be transparent. It's got to be you and you got to have the best relationship ever, you know? And
Right.
until
Right.
that happens, peace and freedom are not an option for you. Until self love is like unconditional, hell, unconditional love with somebody
Mhm.
else may not be an option for you. And this is this is
Right.
not to say you ain't never loved somebody, because I think loving someone and
Right.
being in love and having
Mhm.
unconditional love for that person are two different things. So
Completely
yeah.
different things. Yep.
hmm So I think it's
Yep.
important for you to like find love for yourself, be in love with yourself so you can find love and be in love, and find self acceptance, find approval within yourself and peace within yourself so you can find peace and freedom with someone else, you know?
Mhm.
Mm.
Yep. Totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, self-love is the best love. And you can only be loved to the level at which you love yourself. They say you treat people how you
Facts.
teach people how to love you. So how you love you is how somebody else will love you.
Yeah,
So yeah, give yourself a little space and a little grace to grow. And you don't always have to be in a relationship. Sometimes you have to not be in a relationship in order to find who you are and what works best for you.
that part.
So be okay with be okay with being alone to find the peace within in order to have the freedom without.
hmm Absolutely. And it's interesting because even saying that, like I've unlearned so
Mhm.
many things in my upbringing at this big grown age of mine.
Yeah.
I've unlearned so much, so much. I feel like I've unlearned just as much as I learned. And when you said the word
Yeah.
alone, I remember in
Mhm.
that moment the negative connotation that that word had on me, like whether it be alone
Yeah.
in relationships or alone because I'm by myself or just alone in general. Like alone is not a bad thing. Alone is one of the most
Right.
beautiful things ever. Like that time with
Right.
yourself, especially alone with no distraction, like that time with yourself,
Mhm.
however uncomfortable it may be, is instant growth.
Yep.
It's like constant
Yeah.
work, and it's beautiful. Like so, don't be afraid to be alone. Whether that mean be by yourself for a day or two or a week, or that mean be without a
Yeah.
relationship for multiple months to a year. Like that is okay. There's nothing wrong with you. Sometimes we need to heal. Sometimes we need to grow. Sometimes we need to learn. Hell, sometimes we need to unlearn, and we got to figure that shit out. So, yeah, alone is okay.
Yes. Yes. Right. And I think as society, we have to stop making women feel bad for not being in relationships. I think that's part of it too. People are rushing into stuff because they're like, oh, well, it looks bad if I'm alone or if I'm this age without kids or this age
hmm
without a husband. Like, we have to stop projecting that onto other people because, again, you don't know what that person has to deal with. And we're forcing people, quote unquote, forcing people to get into relationships and put on this picture. Under conditions that they aren't prepared for. That's why people are settling for peace instead of finding their freedom.
hmm
So let people be. Somebody else been in a relationship is none of your business.
Yeah,
Like if you are in a relationship, you have what you got going on, cool. Don't put judgment on other people. If that woman need to be single until she's 75, if that's what she
facts.
needs, then fine. If that man needs to be single until he's 92, then that's what he needs. That's
hmm
fine. Like stop making people say, well, if you're not married in your 20s, then it won't happen or whatever.
hmm
Like we have got to stop projecting what we think things should be on other people. What you think
hmm
it should be what you focus on for yourself. But
That's
again,
it.
everybody else's relationships and statuses really none of your business. Like, chill out. Let people be who they be, how they be who they be. It's called freedom.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely. I think we put so much value, especially with women, right? Like we assess their value with their ability to like be in a relationship. Like how do you relate to a man
Yeah,
as this is your value? And again, this is part of the patriarchy that
right.
we were talking about earlier. It's
Yeah,
misogynistic thinking
yeah,
for us to believe that a woman's value is increased because her ability to like be in a relationship with a man. Like your value has nothing
right.
to do with your partner, right? Like your value
Yeah,
has everything
yeah.
to do with who you are and who you believe yourself to be and how you show up in moments for the people that you love. I think that you
Hmm.
can increase your value on how you support your partner for sure, but like my opinion
Yeah,
of your value has nothing to do with who you are with. And
nothing,
it should never have anything to
nothing.
do with who you're with. Like if I was in a relationship with somebody and somebody was there for me when I was down and helped me through a hard time,
Mhm.
obviously, like, yes, their value in my eyes is going to increase. But like, if you're not in this situation
Right,
for me, that shit is none of your damn business. Like, it has nothing to do
right.
with you, and your opinion is not warranted, not needed, not wanted, none of those things. So, like, you can keep this shit to yourself,
Yep,
you know? Like,
yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the turning point, I would say the turning point for me was when I had a guy say to me, what good is a woman if she can't have kids? And I knew then, like,
mm.
whoa, whoops, like, all right, I need to step back from all of this because, yeah, and it kind of like opened my eyes, like, dang, is that really like, people are really out here thinking that,
Mhm.
not knowing like, we were just having like an open conversation. He didn't know, what I had been through, with the cancer and the
Mhm.
hysterectomy, any of that. He had no idea of any of that. And he just like freely, openly talking about what good is a woman if she can't have
Yeah.
kids. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So then that also like was like, okay, it was like a light bulb. Like, all right, Sharice, I need you to find it within yourself first. Sit
Mhm.
with you and get you together so that because like me in my 20s would have been like, oh, like me now, like you can get on with that, boo boo.
Yeah,
Like cutting
for
up
sure.
you and your eight baby mamas. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's important for you to establish your worth and your value. You know, like what
hmm,
I bring to the table has nothing to do with anybody else, what they brought to the table. But I know like the
right.
importance of me in somebody's bubble, right?
Hmm.
Like if I'm in your bubble, I know the
Yeah,
importance and the value that I bring. That is where it starts. It's like your
yeah.
idea of you. Everybody else's every like what did you say? I think I don't know if I got this from you, but somebody else's opinion of me is none of my business.
None of my
It
business. Yep, I say it all
it
the
ain't
time.
got
Yeah,
nothing to do with me.
yep,
Like my opinion of
yep.
me is the trump card,
My
is the
business.
big joker, is
Right,
the little joker, the two of
right.
spades, the ace of like
Okay.
it's all five of them. Like however y'all play spades,
Right,
but it is all of them.
right.
Like my self worth is
Exactly.
determined by what my hand looks like to me and how I want to fill my cup.
Exactly.
Um, and that's all that
Yep.
matters. Yeah, for sure.
Hmm. Yep. My opinion to me about to run a Boston on all y'all fools. So what?
I'm
Cutting up.
cutting
Like let's listen. What we
everything,
not gonna
right?
cutting it up. Chopper style, chop,
I
chop,
am
chop
Trump
style.
tight. Like
Yeah,
my self esteem is Trump tight. My worth is Trump tight. My
yeah,
value is Trump tight. So
yeah,
please believe I will
yeah.
run this Boston if you come for me.
Come on, everybody. Sit down, look, sitting them down and look, picking them up, look, sitting them down and getting them up. A mess, and it's so crazy because it took me a while to get here.
Yeah.
Like I can admit that it took me a while to sit in who I am
Mhm.
and recognize what I bring to relationships, friendships, work, everything. Like I know my worth, and I think for me that's the most beautiful thing that I could have ever done for myself
Mhm.
was to allow myself to sit with myself and process the things that I really needed to process and get to where I am.
Mhm.
So I wish that for
Yeah.
everybody. Sit with you, allow emotions to come, good, bad, and indifferent. You just have to make sure that your emotions can be your company, but they cannot be your roommate. They cannot live rent free and hold you hostage.
Hmm.
So you just got to be able to, acknowledge and release, and then pull what you need from them and just grow as a person.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We are
it's
all humans having a human experience on a journey of
yeah,
learning how to do this thing we call life. That's all we're out here doing.
yeah,
We just learning how to, like,
yeah,
ain't no handbook for this shit. Like, we just out here learning how to
right,
do life. And our journey is
right
going to
as
be
it goes.
different. Like, we're going to learn some shit. We're going
Mhm.
to unlearn some shit. We're going to unlearn a lot. That's the other part. We're going to unlearn a lot. And
Yeah,
it takes a lot of work,
yeah,
time, effort, energy to really be able to sit with yourself and to accept yourself. Like, this
mm,
this world does not want us to do that. It's not conducive to
yeah,
really believing in who you are and what you bring to the world. It wants you to be
yeah,
dependent on other things, and it wants you to have your worth tied to a relationship or to a job or to a car or to a house or to a social media following. Like, that is the things that we put value in. And so it's important that you identify your value for you and just create peace for yourself so you can
yeah,
be freedom in a relationship. Um, yeah, I think I really appreciate Reese for this conversation. Like, I think it's going to help me going forward. I think being
yeah,
able to really say, wow, this comes from a place of upholding the patriarchy and being misogynistic. Like, I want to let those things go
mhm,
very quickly. So yeah, I really
mhm.
appreciate you like schooling me in this and schooling the chillers
Yeah,
out there. Hopefully, if some of y'all knew about this, then put it in the comments. If you didn't know, put it in the comments. Let us know what you think in the comments. um yeah, but yeah, I think this is a great conversation that you should have with your partner. I think it is an opportunity for growth and exploration with each other. So take some time
yeah,
and do that, build your relationship
yeah.
brick by brick.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
Find out what works for you.
Hmm.
Come to some common agreement, and then stand on that. Be free responsibly. Again, you can always find peace within freedom, but you cannot always find freedom within peace. There is definitely a difference, in my opinion. And I just want everybody to be able to be who they are freely and
Hmm.
love freely and be received freely without any restrictions or restraint. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's my
Absolutely.
take on peace versus freedom.
I think this is an awesome conversation. I think we have again been vulnerable, like been able to like even find some moments of growth and unlearning in moments. And I really appreciate, like I said, I appreciate Reese for bringing this into my perspective. Uh, and yeah,
Mhm,
like alignment, um, reciprocity, um,
mhm.
and freedom. Like, you can't go wrong with
Yeah,
those things. Like, if you can find those in
yeah,
someone, like, you will find happiness. And yeah, I think it's important to know that, like, obviously happiness comes from within as well, but I think there is
mhm,
levels of happiness that you find in partnership and that you like discover more within partnership. And I just think, again, freedom, alignment, reciprocity, like, you can't really go wrong with those. Yeah, but I think it's a great place to stop this
yeah.
conversation and send it over to Reese for her closing remarks.
You already know, be gentle with yourselves. You are only responsible for today. All other days will take care of themselves as they come. Be okay with sitting with yourself, getting to know who you are so that you can get the things that are meant for you. Yeah, just be gentle with yourselves. Love on somebody today, even if that somebody is yourself. Give a little space and a little grace, and yeah, let's keep on this journey of this thing called life. I love all y'all.
Absolutely. I love all y'all. I love you, Reese. Chillers, we will see y'all next week. And we out. Peace out, y'all.
Bye, chillers.